Hey guys, lockdown 2021 is officially upon us. Most of you guys are stuck in online lessons or in some cases stuck in no lessons at all because your schools haven't been able to offer those lessons. So here are some routines and tips that you guys can follow to ensure that you have a super smooth journey from now till your examinations at the end of year 11 or end of year 13. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to split the routine into three different sections. Section 1 will be the schedule, Section 2 will be triaging, and Section 3 will be the value proposition that you will get out of the routine. So let's get into the first one, the schedule. First thing we need to look at in the schedule is that you'll find that your concentration is probably dwindling because of the fact that you're at home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the rest of the month potentially. So this is a big problem, and the way we can rectify this is start working in 1 hour chunks. So there's plenty of scientific evidence and academic literature around this, and I will link that in the description below, so feel free to read that in your own time. But for now, that's the first thing we need to rectify. So let's start working in smaller bite-sized chunks that will really help you. However, I like to add a caveat here. Okay, that's what you probably want to start with, but ultimately you want to work towards your longest exam. And this is something I noticed that a lot of school teachers and a lot of tutors or a lot of advisors don't give out this information, and probably because they don't realize it. But what happens in, say, your longest exam, so if you take GCSE English Literature, which is probably one of your longest exams if you're sitting GCSEs, you'll find that the exam is 2 hours and 15 minutes, 2 hours and a half. And you'll find that if you've only been practicing for an hour, after an hour in the exam, your mind just falls off a cliff. And that's a big problem. Yes. So we need to start working as you get closer to the exam towards the longest exam that you have. Okay. So keep that in mind, that you start with an hour, which is your optimum ideally, but then you move towards your longest exam because you want to develop that mental stamina. On the theme of stamina, we also need to start thinking about our physical well-being. There's a very interesting talk, a TED talk by a lady called Wendy Suzuki, who's a neuroscientist, who talks about the benefits of exercising. And I'll just play some clips here from that talk to kind of just show you the real benefits that you can get from exercise.
That exercise is the most transformative thing that you can do for your brain today. It has immediate effects on your brain. A single workout that you do will immediately increase levels of neurotransmitters, improved attention function.
Maybe get out and do 20 minutes per day exercise, so whether that's jogging, whether that's kicking a football around in the park, whether that's playing tag and chase with your younger siblings, right? Anything that gets your heart pumping, it's really good for you. Okay, so please try to do this, and this is probably one of the most important tips that you can do whilst in lockdown, considering that you aren't really mobile. You're stuck in the house, you're sitting probably in front of your laptop, probably in this hunched manner, that you aren't really giving your brain and your body the fuel that it needs to really excel to the next level. Okay, that you guys might be thinking is, okay, that's all great and well if I start splitting up my day like this and I try to sort out some exercise in the day, that's all fantastic, but I don't have enough time, or how do I even get around to scheduling this in the first place? And that's where point number 2 comes in, triaging. So you tell me that you've got a lot of work from your online school, more so than when you were in school physically. And whilst that can seem on the surface, I would offer you the alternative explanation that you probably haven't accounted for all of your time. So how can you do that? So I would advise making a simple time log, and by the way, there are apps that you can use to do this, but I would advise that you just make a simple time log on an A4 sheet of paper where you have productive time, you have maintenance time, and then you have non-productive time, and split your day by every half an hour slot, and then just have a record of each of these time slots, what exactly you've done. And then note in next to it in a separate column saying whether it's productive, whether it's maintenance time, whether it's non-productive. So productive is anything that gets you towards your goal. So presumably that's your GCSE or A level goals. Or, maintenance is stuff like brushing your teeth, having a shower, traveling, if any traveling at all. All of these kind of things are maintenance. And non-productive is things like watching Netflix, watching Amazon Prime, playing on your PlayStation, or any of these kind of things would be classified as non-productive. So Productive and non-productive, that's dependent on your own goals. So I'll leave that up to you to define what the category and boundaries are. But that would be the first thing that you want to do, to really get a handle on where is your time going. Because I've done this exercise with a lot of students, and what I find is that they are very surprised and shocked when they actually write down these times. So do the time log and just kind of get a handle on what's actually going on in your life. All right. So hopefully you should realize from this exercise is when we say we don't have time, what we really mean is we're prioritizing other things over, this certain task that you don't have time for. So how do we kind of prioritize the right tasks? So here's another little grid or a matrix that you can use, which a lot of time management experts offer this. So what you want is the following. So the way you're going to label it is top left-hand corner, where it's high effort, low impact, is basically a waste of time. Why would you want to put a lot of effort in and get a little result out of it? Okay. And then you're going to have the bottom left-hand corner, which is low effort, low impact. Well, in this case, if the impact is low, you don't really want to do it again. But since the effort is low, you can do it, but only if you really, really have to. Okay. And then you've got the top right-hand corner, which is high effort, but high impact also. So this is the hard work category. And probably a lot of the things you do in your life will come in this category. Okay. And then the final category, which is the bottom right, which is low effort and high impact. Okay. This is the area that you really, really want to be in. So the bottom right hand corner is low effort and very high impact. So the results that you're producing are absolutely astounding for the effort that you're putting in. So there's a quote by Archimedes, which goes something along the lines of, give me a lever long enough and I will be able to move the earth, right? And that's an amazing quote to think about. And ultimately, that's what this box is. This is leverage. So if you can do one little thing that can be repeated 1,000 times with no marginal cost or no additional cost to you time-wise or resource-wise or studying-wise, whatever you need to put in, if you don't have to do that, then this is amazing leverage. And that's where you really, really want to be as a top student, working efficiently, working smartly. Okay, so you need to start categorizing into these categories and see which tasks are really high leverage and which tasks are hard work. Those two are the ones that you probably want to focus on, more specifically the leverage. And this is how hospitals operate. Maybe not exactly the same framework, but they work with a triaging system, which is why when you go in with a headache, you're not the first person to be seen, but rather someone who's been there from before, or rather someone who needs, let's say, a kidney transplant, or someone who's having a heart attack or a cardiac arrest, right? They will go in before you in the waiting list, even though you might have got there before them, right? So this is how a hospital works. So they look at priority and prioritize, because that's how you need to run an efficient system. And ultimately your exams are a system and you need to make those efficient. So far we've got ourselves a schedule, we've planned out a day maybe, and we've said we're going to be working in 1 hour slots with some breaks in the middle, and then we're moving on to prioritizing those tasks and working on only the high priority tasks. But the question might be, how do I know which tasks are quite impactful and which tasks aren't impactful for my studies? So this is where I'm going to break this down into the value proposition. Okay, let's go. So the first thing you need to look at is the top left-hand corner, which is the time that's wasted because of high effort and low impact. And the main culprit here is technology. Okay, so there are 4 things that you really, really want to try to avoid if you want to be a top student. Okay, that's Amazon Prime and Netflix. Number 2 is YouTube. Number 3 is social media or / the phone. And number 4 is gaming consoles. So those 4 are the main reasons why I find that students aren't able to dedicate enough time to their routine or their schedule. So especially since you're stuck at home, it's very easy to refer back to one of those. Yeah. So I would advise that you put a physical barrier in place, especially for a phone and a gaming console. When I mean a physical barrier, I mean give it into your parents. All right. Give it into your mom, give it into your dad, and say, look, after my exams are done, you can give it back to me, or after a week you can give it to me for an hour, but please put a physical barrier in. And the reason I say that is not because I don't trust you or you shouldn't trust yourself, but the reality is that the addictive nature of these devices is so much stronger than our willpower that all sorts of adults struggle with this, let alone teenagers. Okay, so it's very important for you guys to think about. there's actually good literature around this topic as well. So there's a book by Nicholas Carr called The Shallows. There's a book called Plug-in Drug, and these all talk about the harmful effects of technology and how it warps your mind and reduces your ability, your cognitive ability to kind of think, and almost make you addicted to it. So it's not just that you're wasting time playing Fortnite and you're playing Ultimate Team on FIFA 21. What you're doing is you're reducing significantly your concentration span as well. Because remember, every time you watch a YouTube clip, so there'll be a recommended clip right next to it. Okay, so you're watching this one and there'll be a recommended clip right here that watch this next, or this is the suggested video. So every time, every single second or every minute, there's something new. There is a new stimulus to your brain, and this stimulus is really driving you on and keeping your concentration engaged. And this becomes a problem when you're trying to concentrate and you're trying to study. Because when you're studying, let's say you're reading Macbeth, and across 2 pages, all you see is the character walks across the room, and you're like, well, that's boring. Like, all he did across 2 pages is just walks across the room. So you don't really want to focus on that, because now your brain has been trained for this immediate kind of interaction, this immediate satisfaction from these devices. And that's the way they keep you hooked on, because they're kind of keeping you engaged, one after the other, one video after the other, one game after the other, one change after the other. So number one advice that I could give in this kind of value proposition section is that really reduce your wasted time by getting rid of technology, at least until after your exams. The next one, music. This gets everyone riled up because you guys love listening to music while studying. And the problem is, the academic literature suggests that no music is the best, music with instruments is second best, and music with lyrics is the worst whilst it comes to studying. So really, ideally, if you can, do not listen to music if you can while studying. Although I need to highlight, for transparency purposes, that there is an alternative opinion which suggests that in some studies they suggested that music can actually help you. But in my opinion, that's a weaker opinion. The reason being, like, if you think about it, that you've got on one side, you've got your study topics that you're studying. Let's say you're studying osmosis, and on the other side, you're listening to, I don't know, Tupac, right? And the problem is you're diverting your attention to 2 different places. The analogy that I like you to kind of ponder over is that of a light bulb and a laser. At best, a light bulb will diffuse the light in the room. It'll illuminate the room, and everyone will be warm and happy. But a laser, on the other hand, which is quite focused, certain types of lasers can cut through metal. Okay, and that's the difference between a focused person and a person whose brain is all scattered in all different directions. So my personal opinion, which is kind of going above and beyond the academic literature, which is kind of, they've got both sides of the argument for music and no music, is that you shouldn't listen to music while studying. Okay, so that's the point about music. Let's go on to the next thing. Another way to optimize your schedule is to start taking daytime naps. So again, there are studies which show that taking a nap actually replays the memory in your brain. So, you need to make sure that you're actually sleeping properly on time. So I understand that, you guys don't have school in the morning, or you can just log into your Zoom or Microsoft Teams lesson just from your bed. But, this doesn't mean that you can go sleep at 3 o'clock and, you listen to the cricket test match or watch watch a fight or YouTube videos all the way until the middle of the night. What you should do is ensure that you get your golden 8 hours of sleep. And the reason for this is that there is, again, scientific evidence behind this, that, you replay your memories when you go to sleep. So you're consolidating. So if you think about that, if sleep is actually helping you consolidate your memory, then wouldn't it make sense to sleep more than once in a day? So ideally, you want to sleep once in, let's say, in the afternoon, after you've done your school session. So you've had your long, 9 o'clock till, say, 3 o'clock. You've had your online school, and now you want to go really hard at your revision. So you really want to be refreshed, but you don't feel refreshed because you've just had a long day of school. So what you can do is take a 45-minute to 90-minute nap. Yeah. So my advice would be take a 45-minute nap in the day, and that probably means you can sleep a bit less in the night. Yeah. So ensure you get 2 sets of sleep and really consolidate that knowledge. Again, I'll link the literature down below in the links. Yeah. Okay guys, so now we've looked at how to improve our impact and how to reduce our unproductive and wasted time. But what I really want you to focus on is measuring the impact. The way you can do that in an exam situation is a benchmarking tracker. So I'm going to talk to you through the benchmarking tracker that we've designed that you can have a look at, and I'll link it in the description below as well for you guys to use. So the benchmarking tracker allows you to record results. So what you can't record, you can't improve. Okay, if you think about the last 2000 years, of those, the first 1700 years, we never really made a lot of progress. Okay, the reason being that, a fast horse compared to another fast horse was just faster. We just didn't know how fast it ran. We could just say, oh, that horse is faster than the other horse. But in the last 300 to 200 years, we've really made a lot of progress in the Industrial Revolution. We've been able to measure things, and therefore we've been able to improve. Now we can say a Lamborghini does 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, or something along those lines, and then someone else can come along and say, oh, I'm going to try to beat this. So if we have a look at one of these benchmarking files, we can have a look at how it's structured. So you can see here, we're recording the number of papers we're doing, we're recording the name of the student, we're recording the subject, we're recording the exam board, the paper, which year the paper was done, the date you completed the paper, and the marks that you've got, and the time that you've got, and whether it was a closed or an open book test. Okay. And then we've got another section which is kind of repeating the same points, is date completed, mark percentage 2, time 2, book type 2, right? The reason for this is if you wish to do another set of papers, all right, the same paper again, you can record this result over here. And then we've got the target grade, and then you've got the mistakes in the last column. Okay, so the idea here is that you record your results as you do papers. So for every paper that you do, you record your results. And what the benefit of this is, this should show you how to, how you are improving in your impact. Yeah, so you can see here the student was clearly struggling. On average, he was struggling to get about 62% on the first few papers. Okay, so this is the highest set of papers for GCSE maths. And then as you can see, as he done more papers, you could see over time, it starts making huge improvements. And by the last few papers that he has currently done, you can see he's averaging nearly 85%. Yeah, and in fact, over the last, if I just look at the last 4 papers, he's averaging 89%, so nearly 90%. So how has that happened? You could see the student was clearly struggling at the start, is only scoring 60%, and now you've gone all the way to 90%. So this is a very good way of improving, tracking your results, and then improving it. Obviously, this last column is super important, which is the mistakes, which you record down. And the idea is that you don't repeat the mistakes that you've seen in here. Yeah, so for example, if I search up one of the mistakes that this student has got, so let's say if I use SOHCAHTOA, right? Let's see if the student has made mistakes on SOHCAHTOA. So I can see use of SOHCAHTOA. So in fact, the student hasn't quite learnt his mistakes properly. So he's made the same mistake 4 times. So the idea is that you shouldn't be making mistakes on this topic again and again, right? You should only make that mistake once. And after that, you go away and learn that mistake. And that way you can improve. And that's the whole point of this. Once you make that mistake, you should never ever make that same mistake again. So the idea is not that, you get 100% from the start. In fact, I would be happy if you guys were scoring 0%, as long as the mistakes that you were making in the new papers were completely new. You haven't made those mistakes again. So the way the cycle would work for this is that you would do a test paper. Okay, so you would do a test paper and you would mark it using the mark scheme. You would record the results in the benchmarking file, and then you would go and learn your mistakes, and then you effectively repeat this cycle. Okay, and the way when you do this, you will really find that your impact is really being maximized. So that's my final point for the value proposition. So let's round this up with a conclusion. So we went through a few different items. Okay, so we went through scheduling, we went through triaging, and finally we went through the value proposition for this routine. So if we look at all of these 3 things in perspective, the main thing I want you guys to remember out of these items is that ultimately the result is not in your control. Okay, all we can do is focus on the work that we put in. So the routine, the schedule, the priority that you set yourself, the frameworks that you use, the test papers that you do, that's all you can focus on. You can't worry about the marks that you get there. You can't worry about the marks that your teachers give you. Okay, ultimately you should only focus on what you can control. So I'll leave you with that final thought, and hopefully you guys have a great week, and I'll see you soon.